This is the Business Storytelling Show with Christoph Trapp. Name a top 20 storytelling podcast and a top 5% podcast globally. Christoph chats with thought leaders and experts to share tips and tricks that can help you tell your company's stories better to drive business results. Available wherever you listen to podcasts, live streamed on major social media channels, and part of the DB&A television network. Available on most U.S. television sets and streaming on Roku and Amazon Fire. Here's Christoph with today's episode. Let's go.
Let's go, business storytellers. I told you a special guest and special topic for episode 600. We've done this thing 600 times. How about that? So we want to talk about leads. Oh my goodness, the stories we have heard when it comes to leads on the show. I need 7,000 leads. Christina Del Villar mentioned that one, right? Hey, how do we know it's 7,000 leads? Is there even 7,000 people in our target audience? Nobody knows, but it sounds like a round number. Now, Tamika Carlton goes even further, telling us we shouldn't even use the term leads. So that's a new take, an interesting take. I'm sure it goes over well with some people out there, but we're going to dive into that topic and find out what term should we use? Why is the term leads a bad term to begin with? And let's go from there. Welcome to the show, Tamika.
Love it.
Nice to see you. Really appreciate you making the time. And, you know, you're one of those experts I ran across on social media. You were talking about this exact topic. And I said, we got to get her on the show talking about why do we need to change our language. So fill us in.
Yes. So, you know, I've been in the marketing world for a long time, really 15 years. I'm probably dating myself. But ultimately, you know, being in the environment, whether it's corporate, startups, all of the things, one of the main components that I have recognized is that obviously the term leads are super familiar or is super familiar. But when we use that term, we are losing out on the human element. And ultimately, the human element is really the way that we are able to connect and generate and acquire additional leads. So I say, let's throw out the term leads and call them connections and real people, ultimately.
Connections and real people. But how do we know? So let's say you call it a connection. I mean, a connection could be anything, right? Sure. I mean, so I think when I think about leads, sometimes it's easy to know what that is, right? It's somebody who is lukewarm at the minimum, kind of interested in talking to you, and let's push them down the funnel to a sales opportunity. So kind of talk me through, if you name it something else, is there going to be confusion, or is it just going to make us be more human with them? I mean, I do believe in that quite a bit. Whatever language you use when it comes to anyone and anybody, that's the language that you will show in your behavior too.
Sure. Well, yeah, I think, you know, obviously when you tell someone to change their thinking around a term, you immediately feel like, I'm feeling a little confused, right? But the reality is that, you know, a lead goes through several different phases, right? They go through the first phase, they're aware of you, then they go through additional phases, and ultimately the real true goal is for them to convert. And I'm all about saying that they are connections because you are building a relationship throughout these various phases. And just like in the dating world, you could not go from phase 1 to phase 3 without having a true connection and a bond. And I think one of the main things working with my clients over several years is just that people get really overwhelmed with the type of content that they should be releasing to the public. And one of the reasons for that is because they are overthinking, right? And they're overthinking because they're trying to figure out, well, what is my identity? Who am I? Like, how am I supposed to release things that are going to be intriguing or that are going to go viral? And a lot of times when you go through those phases and those thoughts, you miss out on the key element of what is your why, right? And like, why are people going to connect with you in general? And there is your connection, right? So I think more than anything, it's not about being confused anymore. I want people to really say that, and companies to say that it's not about being overly strategic. It's about connecting with people in a real way that these people easily go through these funnels that you've been creating forever, right? And you don't have to focus so much on the specific types of content. You just have to ensure that you're providing value. And another reason that I say that leads are, you're taking away the human element, is because when you say lead, you are, to me, you are definitely now focused on how this person, client, customer can benefit you, right? Like, how can I get this sale? Because now you've come into my world or my orbit. How can I ensure that you're going through the funnel to benefit me? And vice versa, kind of like the inbound marketing strategy, we need to be prioritizing, how can I provide value to you as a human that can relate and connect to me? Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me. And you know what's interesting about that topic too is that it's so much easier to think about ourselves, right?
Yes.
Like, I need this, I need that, et cetera, et cetera. So when you change that around, but before, let's dive back into the providing value in a little bit here. But the
Sure.
first thing I want to circle back on, you were talking about the different phases, and Tamika, don't get me going on this topic, because I know everybody wants to jump to, hey, can we make a sale today? But certainly marketing, as we know, it takes anywhere from 7 touches to
Oh my gosh.
33 touches. I mean, the numbers vary, but I can tell you this: it's not just one
Oh
touch. It's
no.
not just one touch point.
Yeah.
So how do we get people to understand that people don't jump to lead just because you want them to? People have to go through the different areas of the funnel. How do we get, like, what are my talking points to get executives to
Yeah.
understand that?
One of the main things that I like to tell people is you have to earn people's trust. And there are so many things, so many content, or so much content. There's so many avenues that people can go down these days. And in order for you to acquire a relationship or begin a relationship with someone, especially online, whether that be through Tinder or through Instagram, whatever it may be, right? However, you're generating or trying to acquire leads, you have to stand out. And in order for you to stand out, the first awareness phase, right, is going to be the most pinnacle piece, right? Like, how can I make sure that my why is planted all over whatever post, whatever I think, whatever I share? How can I make sure that that is the priority for me and for my company and my brand? And when you do that, it's a lot easier for people to recognize who you are. And I think, especially in the marketing world and just companies in general, one of the main things for successful companies is that they get it, right? When you go to their timeline, or if you go on their website, or whatever it is that you're visiting, a retail store of theirs, you immediately have a brand voice, you have a brand vibe, you have all of those things, right? And regular companies that could very well be on my scale, just sometimes they are confused, and you go on someone's timeline or whatever it may be, and it is confusing. And you have to ensure that I have a framework called ICE. And my framework is, intention, like, what do you intend to do? Right? Then communication, like, how are you communicating with your people? And experience, what is your experience level, and how can you differentiate yourself based off of, the way, what you bring to the table?
It's certainly a challenge, and it's interesting how many brands don't do this well. I mean, I'm thinking of Manscaped, who probably across the board does one of the best jobs, having everybody be in the brand voice and everybody be a
Yes.
little controversial, I guess, right? I mean, I'm
Yes.
thinking of them flying the banner on the beach in Miami, and the
Yes.
banner says, "We love beach balls," right? I
Yes.
mean, how many brands would do that? And then they share that everywhere else. So it certainly takes some planning, certainly takes some some training too, to get everybody on the same page, to make sure you kind of
Yeah.
communicate correctly and accurately across the different channels. Now, certainly, why is it so difficult for some people to flip the script, so to speak, as opposed to, oh, here's how you provide value to me? It's like, how do I provide value to you? And of course, in our case today, right, I don't know that either one of us is talking about providing value to each other, right? We're trying to provide
Right.
value to the people tuning in,
For
the
sure.
people listening, watching on TV, whatever it might be. But why is that so difficult? Why do we, is it
Great
just because
question.
everybody's me?
I think it has a little bit to do with the selfish way of the world to a certain degree, but I also think that, we're in an age of somewhat of a desperation when it comes to sales and just wanting to acquire the sales by any means necessary versus trying to ensure that we are providing not just value, but providing a mission, right? Right? Like, again, what is our why? What is our intention? What are we trying to share that is going to generate a change in someone else, whether it be a change in the toilet tissue that they're using or a change in their lifestyle because you're a life coach? Like, you have to be able to share your outcome and how you're going to make clear adjustments to people's lives. And I think a lot of times when you're in the mode of just, I need to get a sale, you forget the foundation, like the foundation of marketing elements, which is just sharing the voice and the mission of who you are and the mission of your brand and your company. And that should be the passion forward, placement where it should be easy. But a lot of times we're just overwhelmed with so many other things and we're trying to make ends meet, or we're trying to ensure that we're paying salaries to our employees. And it's the why sometimes is the easiest thing to forget.
The whole push to sales. I mean, whenever I bring this up, I like to remind people I like all the money in the world too.
Right.
If you like to support the show, I'm not kidding. You can actually scan this code, and I think
Yes.
that is a $4 support donation, not tax deductible. We're not a nonprofit. But I always like to mention that because sometimes when we talk about this stuff, people say, "Well, don't you want to make money?" Yes, I do. We all want to make money.
Yes.
But right. But at the end of the day, that's not where relationships start. And
Exactly.
you know what? I actually I made a deal before where it wasn't the target client, and it really turned out bad for everybody. It was not a good experience.
Mhm.
Nobody liked it. Nobody enjoyed it, including myself. So, but how difficult, or how can you get that in an organization that people have to, certainly we want to play the short game,
Yeah.
but also play the long game to make it work long term? Because I'm telling you, right, if you sign all these clients and 90% are not your target customer,
Oh,
they will never return, right?
sure. Sure. I think, a lot of it is once again about ensuring that you're expressing the relationship value. And, working for years, I started in the corporate environment. And as we all know, the corporate world is a little bit more strategic and rule oriented. And a lot of times, like the thoughts of those individuals that may not have the overarching main goal, in their foresight, are not listened to or heard. And I think that, one of the main lessons for me just in all of my career has been to listen to the people that don't necessarily always think like you. And I think there's a lot of importance and value in, being like, there's Undercover Boss. Like, that show is probably groundbreaking because the leaders of a company are going to these retail stores or on the front lines to firsthand see like what is occurring. And that's why I'm so passionate about not calling people leads or not making a determination that customers or clients are leads, because I was once on the front line, right? I was once the individual that was communicating and connecting to customers. And I recognized that that was how people continue to return to a store. That is why people continue to invest in you and invest in your company and whomever, because you're creating a customized experience that you can't get Tamika at somewhere else, right? You want to ensure that all of the company's values are wrapped up in all of the people that are working for you, and they are able to put their own little spin on it. And I think that there's so much value in just recognizing that the people that may not be in the corporate meetings or the business meetings or C-suite meetings are the ones that should be providing input on how to market to your customers and clients.
I think it certainly, I mean, you have to have an entire mind shift
Yeah.
change. And I've been on a sales call before. I've been on two different types of sales calls before. One is they were going to sell something no matter what it is, even if they had to make up the product as they were going. So that was one, right? You've been on one of those before?
Yeah. Yeah. I've been there.
Been there. And then I've been on sales calls where, or not even sales calls, but sales conversations where the salesperson would say, "Oh, this is the problem you're trying to solve." Yes,
Mhm,
it is. "Oh, we don't really offer that, or our solution isn't necessarily the best way to do that. You
mhm,
can do pieces of it, and here's what they are,"
mhm,
but they didn't make it up as they were going.
mhm.
Just looking at you, like you seem to like the second version better.
Yeah, of course. I mean, because I'm just like, as entrepreneurs and business owners and CEOs, like you have to be creative, right? Like you can't just say no, we don't have that available, right? And like when when humans are making a request, typically they're making a request based off of a need. And as long as you want to be in business, you want to ensure that you are meeting your customers' needs, right? And a lot of times we get lost in our wants and our desires and our desperations of ensuring that we are meeting a sales quota when we may meet next week's sales quota, but next year's sales quota may be struggling because the person that you just didn't listen to that had this magnificent idea because a customer shared something with them or a client shared something with them, that person may go elsewhere or someone else may just have the same idea and you missed out on an opportunity. And marketing is about opportunities. Marketing is also about making sure that you are aware of all of the things and staying not trendy but staying ahead of the curve, because at the end of the day, if you do not, you can miss out on, I mean, just like with a lot of people these days don't really want to use like AI and chat GPT, and it's like, why not? Like we're in a predicament where this is going to help elevate us all. Yes, we need to ensure that we're utilizing it in the correct way, but at the end of the day, this is going to help transform everyone's lives. So don't get left behind. That's what I always say. And a lot of times, like I said, your customers and your human people connections are going to be the ones that are going to share exactly what they need and want, and that should help trigger your next decision.
The whole AI discussion, I mean,
Mhm.
super interesting to me. And I grew up in journalism, right? Very, very
Right.
traditional, so to speak, right? This is how you create content, whatever. And I love AI. I use it daily. I used it today.
Right?
Maybe the headline for this episode is not AI written. I don't think it doesn't look like it is. But my point is, I use AI to brainstorm headline ideas
Yes.
daily. I did it this morning.
Yes.
I don't write entire articles with AI, but I
Yeah.
sometimes, you know, um, get ideas from
Yes.
AI, right? Like,
It's like your creative counterpart, right? It's like, this is my little friend right here. And my little friend is helping me, right? It's like the perfect companion. And it's really all about how you want to use it, right? It's really all about how you want to magnify what you already currently have, your skill set, your staff, your team, whomever, your vision, how you can magnify all of those things with the correct tools, because that's really what everything that we have is. Like CRM platforms is just a tool for us. I mean, social media is just a tool, but how can you use those tools to magnify and, of course, generate and acquire additional leads and, in my world, connections? And I think, it, there's just so many facets and so many elements and so many things that we can utilize that we would almost be foolish not to try. But also, just from a perspective of not getting overwhelmed with all of the tools, I always tell people, pick what you really love to do, right? Like if you really love to write, like utilize chat gpt for your writing. If you really want to use or focus on like video content, like use the appropriate AI for the video content that you're going to share. Like just pick what makes the most sense for you versus trying to use all of the things for everything.
yeah, and the other thing you mentioned there is, it has to solve a problem for you. And the
Yes.
problem all these tools have solved for me is number one, I can brainstorm way, way quicker, right?
Right?
Because I just do it here and I get some ideas. That doesn't mean I don't want to talk to other humans, but it certainly helps from that perspective. I also love subjectline.com. So check that out. I actually run
Right.
my subject lines through there. Jay Schwedelson was on the show. And now when you put it in there and it doesn't score perfect 100, which of course all of mine do, haha, they don't. But it does give you ideas based on what the AI is
Hey,
seeing in
that's
the
so
content.
awesome.
Now, in the next 4-minute segment here, Tamika, tell us about how do we treat a connection differently from a lead? What's the different behavior?
Great question. I would say the different behavior of how you're going to treat a connection is that you are going to ensure that every touch point is meeting a need, just like, same phase. And you're going to allow them to flow through these phases or funnels and conversion process with information that is going to be a story, really, right? Like at the end of the day, people connect through story. And this is the perfect show for this, right? Everyone wants to see themselves in a company. Everyone wants to see themselves in a story. And when you're able to connect with your connections in a story, in a way through story at every single touch point, you now are building loyalty with this person because they feel like you get me, you understand what I am going through, and you share the experience. And that in itself will ensure that not only will people convert, but they will continue to click through your emails. They will continue to follow you on all of your social media platforms because it's not just about what you're providing them. Yes, you're solving a need, but it's about who you are and what you're bringing to the table uniquely from your brand, which is super important.
I think to do that, though, it really takes a strategy, first of all, and it
Sure.
also
Of course.
takes ongoing implementation. What
Oh
tips
gosh,
do you
yes.
have for that? Because I kind of joke, it's not really a joke, but it kind of is. I've seen so many strategies over the years that were fantastically well written. And
Mhm.
then I look at their social media or I look at
It's
their
not
emails or I look
executed.
at whatever, and they're not doing any of it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think a lot of it is just having a plan of attack, and also, your strategies can always shift, but I think being able to look at kind of what I say with the my framework, like what is your intention? Have a clear why for that. And like if your intention, for example, for me is like really ensuring that people build quality relationships with their customers, with their clients, with whomever, that needs to be threaded and woven through every post that I have, right? Or every content piece that I share. Even here, wherever you are, make sure that you're voicing and vocalizing your why and your intention. Same with communication. Like, how are you communicating with people? How often? Like, whatever it is, it needs to be consistent. I always suggest at least once a week for emails, especially if you want to make sure that you're on top of the mind of your connections. And then experiences, like share your experiences all the time. I mean, I'm super private, but I have learned that the more I share who I am and what's valuable to me, the more connections connect with me, the more I receive DMs, the more that people are like, you know what, you are sharing something that's different, that has a different opinion for me. But at the end of the day, I love it. I love it. I like to hear it. So I think just having an experience and being open to sharing that experience, consistency, and knowing too that your strategy will change is always key as well.
I do think a lot of people do struggle with the consistency piece, right?
Yes.
Because they'll say, "Oh, too much content, too much, too much." And I'll give you an example. I love The Rookie, and I also love The Rookie, The Feds on. I don't even know what it's on, ABC, I guess,
Yes.
but I watch it on YouTube
Oh, the
TV.
feds
So they
is
don't.
new, I think.
You haven't watched it?
No, not yet.
It's a great show. But here's the thing, right? It's not on every week, right? They have
Mhm,
breaks between
mhm,
seasons. And
mhm,
then sometimes, and even if they have it on every week, it's only every week. And I'm
mhm,
like, oh, you know what? I got some time today. It's
mhm.
like I'm on vacation. I would love 8 episodes of The Rookie today. So my point is, if your content is relevant, useful, people like it, people won't say, oh my God, I got another email from Tamika.
Exactly, because it's connecting with them and they'll look forward to it, right? And I think that's the thing. Like, it's like you can learn how to do cliffhangers, like use Chat GPT and AI to help coach you through having cliffhangers in your emails where people are like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait for the next email from Tamika, right? And just know that you can share what you desire to share, and the more content that you share consistently, the more people will wait for that content. So I mean, it's really, I always tell people it's up to you how successful your business is through content. It's really just about trial and error to a certain degree.
It is, but also learn from the people who've been there before. Read the
Exactly.
right blogs, follow the people on social media, and do what you can do. But at the end of the day, you have to keep going. You know what you want to talk about and make it a success from there. Tamika, I really appreciate you coming on the show. This was
Yeah.
awesome, a fantastic 600th episode. Really appreciate you.
Yay.
Tell us, how can people connect with you? Who should reach out to you? And how can you work with them?
Absolutely. I love working with individuals and businesses that are impactful and wanting to acquire additional reach and acquire new connections. You can reach me at tamikacarlton.com or follow me on Instagram at Tamika_Carlton JBP. And really, it's about, if you want to build really great quality relationships with not only your business people or your potential clients and customers, but just everyone in your life, because relationships are the only things that are going to keep us happy. And I'm all about that life. So looking forward to connecting.
That's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. Please rate and review our show on your favorite podcast channels. And don't forget to share this episode with your networks. We appreciate you.